So we're past Veterans Day, and on Veterans Day, a big thing happened in Dallas sports history.
Let's get the elephant out of the room.
My goodness, Nico Harrison is fired, folks. He is gone. The GM of the Dallas Mavericks is no longer the general manager. He has been ousted by
Ah.
the Mavericks front office. He is gone. The man who sent off Luka Doncic and flat out turned his back on the franchise. TJ, your thoughts on what was a crazy Veterans Day?
Look, if I had some kind of like birthday hat or one of those things that you can like, you blow out and I don't know what
I
you
don't know what
call
they're
them,
called either. I don't know.
but I would be having them for this episode. This is a tremendous step in the right direction. I still want to say that, you know, as much as I wanted the guy gone, there's still a lot to do left, and of course the damage has already been done. And I think that Patrick Dumont, him talking to that kid at the game in the Lakers Luka jersey and all this stuff. Some people I've seen that talking about that being a photo op. And I
Yeah.
don't know if it was, I have seen him sit courtside before. I know that he has a suite, but I've seen him sit courtside before, so I don't know if it really was that a photo op per se, as some people are saying. But um I mean, you know I just want people to know before I even, because we all hate Nico, obviously, but the one thing is that Patrick Dumont is still to blame for all of this mess, even though he's the one that's kind of trying to get the mess out of here and try to talk about how he's so committed to the Mavericks. I'll always have a little side eye from a distance to Patrick Dumont because, anytime that he talks, I mean, one of the first impressions that you get from him post Luka trade is him talking about work ethics. And he mentioned Shaq. Shaq.
Yeah.
This guy doesn't know ball. He doesn't know ball. He only knows business. All right. That's why he's suing them. That's why he's suing the Stars. That's why he had to have so much time to finally turn around to this trade and be like, you know what? This trade was ass. Um, and so, and again, he's a businessman from Vegas. There's been all these rumors about them moving to Vegas. I don't think they're going to get, gambling legal in Texas. And, once they fail on that, what's going to happen? Are they going to build a stadium in Dallas? Hopefully they will, obviously. But I'm always going to be giving a little side eye to Demont, even though he did us a great, great service on this Veterans Day. But you got to say, he's still a shady guy.
Again, I wonder Mark Cuban's thoughts on a day like Veterans Day where Harrison was gone. It's just you draw back to the day that you heard that Cuban was selling his majority stake, and you just think sometimes how life could have been different if he was still majority owner. And it's just
Yeah,
wild how
maybe.
different the franchise has changed to me in my eyes. I feel like I'm not a lifer like I used to be. I feel like I'm not as connected with the team as I used to be, and maybe that's just dependent on the fan. But since that Luka trade, it just feels so much different. The air doesn't seem as much the same in Dallas with fans and their relations with the Dallas Mavericks. We all know tickets have skyrocketed, and of course that has to do with Luka when he was there and leading the team to an almost championship run. But Luka Doncic is playing at an MVP level in the NBA, and this came after, by the way, the firing came after a career game from Cooper Flag against Milwaukee, and what a game that was, where he scored 26. Unfortunately, the
Not
Mavs found a
Nico.
way to
Yeah,
not
it's
hold
it's not
on.
Nico's, he wasn't the reason why we got Cooper Flat. I mean, I guess he was, but he didn't play any part.
Yeah,
Just
I
gotta put
mean that game right there, you saw a little bit of backlash with how Flag has been used by the Mavericks coaching staff and Jason Kidd, who just got an extension, still kind of playing point guard in a way, and he had a career game. Looking at that Bucks game, if you did look at it a lot or more intently, is there hope for this offense after seeing what they're capable of against a good Bucks team, in my opinion?
I mean, I don't know how much the offense, obviously the offense is historically bad. I don't know. I'm really, really interested in, we don't know what the outcome of the Suns game is going to be. Um, I want to know how this offense, or how the players, how the vibes shift. within this team. I read that report from Tim McMahon where they were talking about the players um, were basically not enjoying playing at home, obviously. They felt like the fans didn't want them to win. And I think that that really cost them because, I mean, basically they've played almost every single game at home at this point so far in this season. They have another 3 games left on this homestand, counting the Suns game. And, they've been struggling at home. I don't know, you know, I don't know if this offense has any hope, but if there is any hope, it rests on the fact that the players are finally free from scrutiny, unnecessary scrutiny on the players because people just can't stand the Mavericks in the first place now. And, unfortunately, I've always felt really bad for these players ever since the trade because it's obvious that, it's obvious that it wasn't the Dallas Lucas, it's the Dallas Mavericks, and they have multiple players on the team. I still love watching and, I love watching Kyrie Irving, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford. Those are some of my favorite players in Mavericks history. And, you know, I feel so disconnected to the team. And so I don't know how they felt. I don't know how they felt with, how this was all conspiring because they knew or they know what the fans, feel. They definitely see it. They definitely hear it. And so, I don't know if that made them uncomfortable enough to where it hurt them with their mental game, working, playing on the court, their offensive schemes, all that stuff. We'll see if it fixes just a little bit of stuff, but I mean, it's kind of hard to see this offense flip the script. It's kind of asking if you have any hope for the Cowboys defense. 3 or 4 games into the season, we knew that wasn't going to get any better. I don't know. I'm just trying to remain hopeful now since it feels like there is a little hope with the Mavericks now with Nico gone. So,
I mean, for the time being, I understand exactly what you're coming from. The offense looked okay. I don't think this is, a sign of good things to come. But what has been constant, I guess, is the fake DFW comeback and, holding on and then blowing in the last few seconds against Milwaukee. What is really concerning is this Anthony Davis injury. I mean, my goodness. I don't know if you saw that picture. Did you send that to me or was that somebody else?
you sent it to me.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness. Wow. I hope that's fake. But yeah, he's been sidelined for a few weeks now, and he's not going to get the okay until Patrick Dumont says he's okay. I hope that's a good rest in what that means. But AD has been warned of a potential torn Achilles by the Mavs staff, and he's sitting aside for now. And so you look at this lineup, and it's just beat up early in the season. Are we supposed to as Mavs fans and people who have intently watched the Mavs for the majority of our lives, are we supposed to be hopeful for the next few months? It's not looking good. If
uh,
AD is looking how he did in that picture, I don't know if he's fit right now to even play a game in the next 2 weeks, as it stands, obviously, with the Achilles warning. I don't know if he'll play a game in 2025 again. I mean, he might not be back till the top of the year. I mean, I don't know at this point because they were rushing him back way too early if they had an Achilles injury um, that has kind of set him aside so far the first few weeks of the season.
well, I think a lot of people, you know, it would be nice to still have Casey Smith. I'll say that. Um, but you see how we had a whole turnaround in our trainers from from this past season to this season, and everybody thought it was going to get better. We knew that these injuries were still going to happen. Anthony Davis, it's not just 1 or 2 seasons. It's a whole track record of the last 5 or so seasons where he hasn't played over 50 to 60 games in a season. And I just we knew Kyrie was going to be hurt, but the ones that really hurt are, the Derek Lively injuries. I think, Derek Lively being hurt, Daniel Gafford getting hurt this early in the season. Those are some players that you just need to stay healthy. Derek Lively specifically because I'm talking about how he's underperformed. I talked about that last week in the podcast. He's underperformed ever since the Luka trade, obviously. He benefited a lot from the playmaking from Luka. He can't create his own offense. But he's still super young. You want to see him develop, and he can't develop if he keeps getting hurt, and that's what keeps happening. And so I'm disappointed with that. Anthony Davis injury. We kind of
You brace him
again,
for
it's
that.
it's a long track record of injuries for AD at this point that you had to have seen it coming. You just had to have.
I mean, you hate it for AD as well because he's always come off as a really solid guy.
He's a
Never has
Packers
any
fan though.
issues
Don't forget that.
somehow, which I'll never understand. He's
A
not
lot
even
of
from
people
either.
from Chicago are Packers fans.
Yeah,
It's weird.
craziness, craziness. But he's always come off as a nice guy to me, a guy who's never really had a problem. I feel like with any of his teammates over the years, even with the Pelicans or Lakers or now with the Mavs, stand
Right.
up veteran player, and I just hope he's fine because he's had unfortunately had a target on his back since that Luka trade, and people every
Right.
time he gets hurt is just gonna be like, told you so. This is what we were talking about as Mavs fan. Look, he's hurt again. I feel bad for the guy, but it's just a shame, and it's really was been the cause of Nico Harrison's downfall. As before that trade, I mean, Nico Harrison hitting off on all cylinders, it seemed like every, trade deadline. It was very favored by Dallas fans, and it was a sad way to go out. So very sad for the Dallas Mavericks, but a good day for Mavericks fans on Veterans Day, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
but I think it's also important to know that Nico was part of the reason why they were not able to re-sign Jalen Brunson, and they
Yeah,
also traded a first round pick for Christian Wood and signed Grant Williams. So
unreal, man. Crazy.
he had some kind of issues at times, but yes, I do agree that before that I was fully trusting Nico Harrison and the GM role because of the trades they made for Gafford and Washington. I thought those were perfect trades, even though they did give up a little bit of gave up more future assets than they got for Luka Doncic. And so, I don't know. I could go in a whole, downward spiral about how this trade, no matter how much times I deep dive into the Luka trade, it'll never make sense. But at times it is hard to talk about why they were not able to get future assets in that trade. And it almost makes sense to the point where it was the NBA's doing, and I hate to be that guy, but when you talk about a trade for a 25-year-old superstar, even if you're trying to get a win now mode, how do you only get one first round pick and a 21-year-old Max Christie? It's almost like Adam Silver was like, look, we need the Lakers to stay competitive. We can't give their future assets because we can't have Luka playing, averaging 40-point triple doubles with no help like he was with the Mavericks for some time. And so, I don't know. I hate to be that guy, but that's when it makes me think, that's when I'm hashtag nudising.
Dude, I mean, besides Jim Nill and possibly early John Daniels, I never seen a GM with such respect in DFW sports as Nico Harrison prior to the Luka trade. And of
Say
course,
John
you were saying
Daniels?
John Daniels for sure has some respect.
Oh, I
In the t
hated John Daniels.
Well, at the end, but in the
At the end,
2010s when
yeah.
he
At the
was making
end.
those moves as the youngest GM in the league, he
Okay.
was very liked.
No, that's
Took
fair. That's a
the
fair
Rangers
point.
to their first World Series. But Nico Harrison is gone. We won't be able to talk about the Suns, but on Friday the Mavs play their first NBA Cup group stage game against the Clippers at the AAC.